Okay, so I ran the numbers on what the TNA podcast costs to run me each month, and it is huge. Here's the breakdown. $2,000 a month goes to my podcast editing company. They are amazing at what they do, but they are bloody expensive. Another $2,500 a month goes to team who help me get the podcast out on all the platforms. So creating social media snippets, putting it on the website, creating the blog, creating the video for YouTube, the list goes on. Plus, I spend another $100 a month for podcast hosting and my recording platform. So that's a total of $4,600 a month. Oh my God. Now that doesn't take into consideration any of my time or expertise. And I can spend more than 10 hours on one 30-minute episode, as I love to deep dive researching and reading literature to articulate succinctly and practically on complex sports nutrition principles. Now, what you put in your ear holes that sounds super simple and easy is in fact a huge production behind the scenes. So if you love the TNA podcast and would like it to continue ad-free, I'd love your support. For less than the cost of a gel, you can give back to the show at dietitianapproved.com/legend. Here you can make a small donation of your choice or set up a small monthly ongoing thank you. If I've helped you even a little bit over the years, it's a great way to say thanks. And when you do, please leave me a message, as I'd love to give you a shout out to say thank you back. Before we dive into today's episode, I just wanted to say a massive thank you and shout out the latest supporters of the TNA podcast. Thank you so much to Rob Stent, Beppo, Steve Duquette, Katie, Steve Dempsey, Robson, and Katie. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Your input really helps to make sure the podcast stays ad-free, but it is a huge beast of a thing to keep a podcast going. So if you would love to support the show as well, head to dietitianapproved.com/legend. If you're racing an Ironman this season, you need to listen to this episode because the rules have changed and your hydration setup may now be illegal. Yep, that's right. Ironman has introduced some new race regulations effective from the 17th of March 2025 that limit how much fluid you can carry on your bike and where you can store it. So if you don't adjust your strategy for races after that date, you could be setting yourself up for disqualification on race day, which is not what anyone wants after putting in all that time and effort with training. So don't worry, I've got you covered. Today I'm going to give you the cliff notes of the massive 34-page rules document because, let's be honest, nobody has time to read that. I'm going to break down exactly what those new rules mean for you, how to tweak your hydration strategy, and of course, how to avoid penalties while still staying properly hydrated and fueled for peak performance. And if you want to dial in your bike nutrition with confidence, I've got a great resource that is going to make it super easy for you. And I'll tell you about that at the end of the episode. So stick with me. All right, let's clip in and get into it. Welcome to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast, the secret weapon in your ears for triathletes who want to get fitter, faster, stronger, and healthier with evidence-based nutrition. Let me break down the new hydration rules coming from Ironman. So there are three major changes. The first one is that any front-mounted hydration setup, so hydration setups between your arms, so on your tri bars or sitting above the cockpit there on your handlebars, that's capped at 2 litres or 67.6 fluid ounces if you're that way inclined. Your rear-mounted hydration, so things behind the saddle, is also limited to 2 litres or 67.6 fluid ounces. But here you can't have any more than 2 water bottles, and each water bottle has a maximum of 1 litre carrying capacity, so 33.8 fluid ounces. And the third component of the new ruling is that any additional hydration systems that sit inside the frame triangle, so between your legs, and also inside your bike frame are not counted in this limit. So some key points that we need to talk about. It is the fluid carrying capacity of that vessel or water bottle. It's not how much volume you've put in it. So as an example, if you had a 1 litre bottle and you only filled it up to halfway to 500 mils, it doesn't matter. That's still being counted as 1 litre. The rules are effective from the 17th of March 2025. So the first Ironman branded event that these new rules come into play is for 70.3 Geelong on the 23rd of March, which is this weekend. The penalty for taking too much out and being overloaded is actually disqualification, and we definitely want to avoid that. There is some method to the madness and some legitimate reasons around why the rules have changed. Primarily it's safety concerns. Overloaded hydration setups on the front end are definitely going to affect your bike handling. Your bike is not going to steer as well if there's a whole heap of weight sitting over the cockpit. So steering is going to be negatively affected. It was also put into the rules to try and standardise it across races. The World Triathlon actually changed their ruling back in January. So it means that we're on the same playing field across all of those events. And it probably came about in that circuit because Gustav Iden stuffed a water bottle down his suit on his way to setting an overall course record at Kona. And there's question around whether he used the bottle to divert air around his torso and, reduce drag and improve aerodynamics. And of course, because a pro did that, copycats proliferated. And both pros and age groupers alike started adding bottles and even bladders down their suit. So because of that, we now have a new rule. So how does this impact you and your race strategy? We know that the rules are changed. The big question is, what is that going to mean for your race day fueling and for you as an athlete? I know a lot of athletes are already struggling with their bike nutrition, and those new limits could make it even worse if you don't have a plan. So if you used to carry more than that, then you're obviously going to have to reassess your whole plan around hydration and fueling. It might mean that you become more reliant on aid stations than you were before. And it definitely means you're going to need a plan for when to swap bottles out and strategize your smart aid station use. You want to know how frequently you're going to hit aid stations and plan your refills accordingly so that you know what you're planning on doing on the race. You might want to consider taking an extra bottle at one opportunity and key points and then swapping it out later so that you've got on board what you need but not going over that limit. If you had a whole heap stacked on the front and the back, maybe you want to shift to more of an on-frame setup instead of the weight being front and back. There are quite a few strategies and products on the market to help get your water bottle and hydration setup happening on the frame. And new TT bikes today are so cool. They're built in lots of hydration reservoirs and things in the frame, and that doesn't count as your capacity. And so for those, the weight is much more central. It's down lower on the bike. So it's not going to affect your steering and your handling like it would on the front and the back. Another mistake I foresee happening is that people are going to either underestimate or overestimate how much fluid they need because we've been limited. If you are under carrying, maybe you feel like you should now increase it to hit the max because, we're high achievers. Or if you had more than that, now you're going to be having to have less. So make sure whatever you do, if you make a change to your setup and your strategy, that you practice it really well in training first and don't try something new on race day. You need to keep in mind, though, that the more you take, the heavier your bike will be. So in theory, you could take up to 10 litres of fluid on your bike with what's on the front, what's in the back, what's on your frame, what's in your frame. But do you actually want to do that? Or do you even need to do that? You don't want to be slowing down to grab lots of bottles every aid station or stopping at special needs to top up. But conversely, you don't want all that extra weight on your bike when you probably work so hard to keep your body composition in check. You've got everything carbon fiber. There is no point carrying and stacking up all this extra weight and fluid on your bike if you don't need it. So there is so much to consider when it comes to your bike nutrition with the hydration and the fueling, and particularly the logistics of how on earth you carry everything. I see it all the time when people either underfuel because well, one, they're afraid of gut issues. Two, they have no idea where to put everything or how to carry it for what they need. And maybe they want to rely on aid stations, but then they can't pick up stuff from an aid station for whatever reason. They missed it, they dropped it. And so that is a big mistake that I see really commonly. And the other one is overfueling on the bike and feeling full and bloated and sloshy, particularly when you go to run off the bike. And the third thing is people going out and doing a full distance race like this, or even a 70.3, and having no plan and just relying on aid stations and grabbing what is available on course. It blows my mind that people would do a full distance event without everything fully dialed in the first place, because you've spent so much time training, you've spent so much money on that race. I don't understand why you wouldn't then layer in the fourth leg, nutrition, to get everything right and optimized to have the most successful day in the office. And now with these hydration setup restrictions and new rulings, I think if you don't have a good strategy, you're either going to bonk or cramp or just spend too much time refilling water bottles or trying to figure it out when it's super easy with a little bit of direction. The other thing to consider with bottle setup, and this is like a whole other topic of conversation for another day, is what you put where. And a lot of people don't even actually understand what the difference is between a sports drink and electrolytes versus water, and why you would have what and what volumes of each you would have and where on earth you put it on your bike. That is a whole other topic that we're not going to dive into today. But if you don't have that sorted for each race, then you are definitely leaving some performance on the table. Now, to help you adapt to these rule changes, but also make sure you have a perfect formulated training nutrition plan that you can layer into racing, I've put together a 60-minute bike fuel masterclass so that you don't have to guess your way through all of this, get some actual structure and strategy to help with your nutrition on the bike. Inside, I cover my triathlon ride fuel guidelines, because riding on the bike in triathlon, where you have to run off, is so different to just cycling alone. There are so many different strategies we can pull on to set ourselves up for running successfully without sloshing, without vomiting, without having to run for the Portaloo, or getting to the run and having no energy. Like, that is a big mistake that we can do differently by setting ourselves up on the bike. I also run through understanding your specific fueling strategy, because you are your own special unicorn. You can't apply somebody else's strategy to you. You can't pull generic information off the internet and apply it to you. So I'm going to teach you how to dial in your fueling, whether it's the on season, the off season. How long is the session? What's the intensity like? What are your body composition goals? These are just some of the factors that go into our fueling strategy, and I'm going to show you how to dial in yours so that you can stop winging it and just hoping for the best, hoping it's right and hoping it'll all sort itself out. And then finally, I cover some sports nutrition products and foods that are great to have on the bike. Not because I get commission to recommend them. I don't get any kickbacks for recommending anything, because I want to be sure and confident that if I suggest something, it's because it's good, it's evidence-based, it's worked for a lot of athletes, not because I get paid to do so. So how do you figure out what are the best sports nutrition products to use? Should you eat solid food? Should you have gels? Should you have bars? Should you have blocks? Why is everything so sweet? I'm so sick of sweet. I'm going to dive into all of that, so don't stress, and I'm going to help fast track your research through all the different products for bike fueling, so that you can ride strong and set yourself up for a killer run. So if you want to grab that, head to bikefuel.co and you get instant access for the next 60 days to watch it over and over and over again and build your fueling strategy for all sorts of training rides to set up your race day nutrition. All right, that's it for today. That is a quick summary of the new hydration rules that you need to know about so that you don't have to read the 34-page document from Ironman. You are welcome. I hope you found it super helpful, and, send me a message if you've got any questions about that. Share it with a training buddy who is doing an Ironman branded event this year. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you can put me in your ear holes next week for your wind trainer ride or your long run. All right, now go out and fuel smart, ride strong, and I'll catch you next week.